There are moments that don't feel real while you're living them. Moments where the noise fades, your heart races a little faster, and you realize something unforgettable is happening right in front of you. And you can't stop it, you can't replay it, you can only feel it. Tokyo had two of those nights. Two nights where tens of thousands of people came together, not just to watch a concert, but to witness something that felt bigger than music itself. And somehow, in the middle of all that overwhelming emotion, a world was created. Jinland. The Tokyo Dome wasn't just full, it was alive. Light sticks shimmering like stars, voices overlapping, anticipation building so intensely it almost felt suffocating. You could see it in people's eyes, that quiet hope that tonight would be the night. And then, Jin appears. No warning could prepare you for what followed. The reaction wasn't just loud, it was emotional. Like something people had been holding in for far too long finally broke free all at once. Because this wasn't just a performance. This was a return, a reclaiming. From the very first note, Jin doesn't test the waters, he owns them. His voice rings out impossibly clear, filling every corner of the dome with a stability that feels almost unreal. No cracks, no hesitation, just control. And when Like Animals begins, everything changes. That siren, nickname, stops being just a title, and starts feeling like a warning. His voice pulls you in, wraps around you, refuses to let go. High notes that pierce through the air like lightning, low tones that settle deep in your chest. It's overwhelming. Beautiful, but overwhelming. You can actually hear it happening. The audience gasping, reacting, trying to keep up with something that feels beyond human. And visually, it's almost too much. Every expression calculated but natural. Every movement elegant yet powerful. Jin doesn't chase attention, it follows him. And then, just when the energy feels like it can't go any higher, he slows it down. The music softens, his ments begin, and suddenly the massive Tokyo Dome feels small. His voice changes, not weaker, but warmer, more personal. He speaks to ARMY like he always does, with sincerity that doesn't feel rehearsed, with emotions that don't feel filtered. And in that moment, it's not about the scale anymore. It's about connection. And when he ends it with that familiar hand kiss, it lands differently. Softer, deeper, like a quiet promise. But what's happening inside the dome? It doesn't stay contained. Step outside, and it's like the entire city has already given in. Walls covered in his face, storefronts glowing with his campaigns, screens replaying his image over and over like the city itself refuses to look away. Fans walking through those streets aren't just heading to a concert, they're stepping into a space that feels built around him. Tokyo didn't just welcome BTS, it became Jinland. And then came the moment that turned admiration into undeniable proof. Merchandise. Fans lined up early, planned everything, timed it perfectly. But it didn't matter. Day 1, Jin's items sell out first. Day 2, the same story repeats, even faster. Even group merchandise disappears alongside his. And what's left behind isn't just empty shelves, but quiet disappointment. I didn't get it. But somehow even that becomes part of the story. Because what they witnessed wasn't just popularity, it was impact. And while Jin was turning the stage into something almost mythical, Jimin was creating something just as powerful, but in a completely different way. When he steps into the light, everything shifts. Softer, more cinematic. His blonde hair catches the glow, framing his face like he walked straight out of a scene rather than onto a stage. There's something about him that feels emotional before he even begins. And then, he moves. Every step sharp, every transition seamless, every motion carrying intention. You're not just watching choreography, you're watching a story unfold through his body. And then he sings. That voice, it doesn't just sound perfect. It feels perfect. During Fire, the intensity is relentless. His body is pushed to its limits. You can see the effort, the breath getting heavier, the strain building. But when the high notes arrive, they don't break. They rise. Strong, clear, unshaken. It's the kind of moment that makes you forget what love even means, because it sounds too flawless to believe. And then, everything slows. Crystal snow. No build-up, no spectacle, just Jimin. And his voice. And suddenly the entire dome feels quiet in a different way. Not empty, but focused. Like everyone is holding on to each note as it passes. His tone softens, turning fragile but never weak. Emotional but never forced. It feels like he's not performing to a crowd. He's sharing something personal with every single person there. People try to describe it later, a youth movie, heavenly vocals, like stardust. But in that moment, it's just unforgettable. And just when emotions are already at their peak, Jimin reaches into his pocket. A letter, handwritten, in Japanese. The moment he begins reading, everything changes again. The massive venue shrinks into something intimate, something almost quiet. His voice, softer now, carries something heavier than before. Time. 8 years. Gratitude. He talks about how long it's been since he stood there, how much it means to come back, how it was only possible because of the fans waiting for him. And then gently, almost like he doesn't want the moment to end, he asks, "Is today really the last day?" And just like that, the emotion breaks. Not loudly, but deeply. Because everyone understands what that question really means. That this, right here, is something you can't hold on to forever. 2 nights. That's all it took. For Jin to turn a city into a kingdom. For his voice to echo far beyond the stage. For Jimin to turn a performance into a memory that feels almost too personal to share. 2 nights that didn't just happen. They stayed. And now, as the lights dim, as Tokyo slowly returns to normal, as the echoes begin to fade, there's one question left behind. If this is what it feels like when they come back, what will it feel like when they never leave again?